Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at 5 major components of physical fitness. And this has to do with one of the most important pieces to the puzzle. It has to do with one of our 12 essential needs, exercise. Now, I really don't like that word exercise. That's a 4-letter word in my book. I like to use the word play. Because we want to do something that we look forward to doing every day. It's fun, and we're disappointed if we don't get to do it. Now, a lot of exercise is not much fun the first 5 minutes if it's really strenuous, but about within 5 minutes the endorphins kick in, and that's what a lot of people get addicted to. So a lot of people can easily talk themselves into doing something once they've done enough of it, because they know how good they feel after they've done it. So a lot of us haven't gotten to that point where it feels good yet. If we're at a point where we got too much weight to move around, it's not much fun to move it around. So what do? Well, that's where a solid food vacation comes into play. That's the fastest and safest way to lose weight. The average woman loses 20 pounds in 30 days. The average man loses 30 pounds in 30 days. And I'm talking about the average American, and we're pretty big over here, so that's why they can lose so much so easily. And if they're even bigger, which a lot of them are, you can add another 10 pounds onto that easily. And then once you start losing the weight, you're going to want to get out there and have some fun. So we don't want to say, oh, I got to go out and run. If you're going to start a program, an activity program, and you think, well, I want to be effective, let's go out there and start running. Well, what if your personality is not that type? And some personalities don't have a lot of physical energy, so they prefer something like walking. They prefer to think while they're doing things like that. But even if you have that physical energy, if you're not in shape yet, this might be a little difficult to get out there and do. So if you're in the beginning of a program, it's best not to start off that way usually, because if it's raining outside, you go, yippee, I don't have to exercise today. And that's not the attitude we want to have about this thing we have to do. We want to be disappointed if we can't get out there and go play, kind of like you were back in school and you wanted to go out and play during recess, and you were eager to have recess come along. I think nowadays a lot of kids I don't even know if they even allow kids at recess anymore. I think some schools don't do that anymore, which is mind-boggling. They don't require phys ed either, which is mind-boggling, because one of the major components of being healthy is to understand our major components of fitness. So number one major component of fitness is our muscular strength. How much force can a muscle or a group of muscles exert? Number two would be muscular endurance. Now there's 2 ways this applies. The first is the length of time a muscle or a group of muscles can continue to exert a force without fatigue. The second way has more to do with how many times we can exert force repeatedly against a given amount of weight. In other words, I can go out and run a 5-minute mile for 4 miles and then I start fatiguing. So that's one way to evaluate your muscular endurance. Or I can take 500 pounds and lift it over my head 10 times. That would be another way to describe your endurance. How many times can you lift a certain amount of weight? Number 3 would be our cardiovascular and cardiopulmonary health, our aerobic fitness. That has to do with how capable is our heart and lung system at bringing blood and oxygen to the working muscles. Very important component of fitness to be healthy. Number 4 is flexibility. And in my book, this is number 1, especially for men. I don't know about you guys, but when I grew up watching the little boys and girls play in elementary school, the boys were doing the calisthenics, jumping jacks like this and doing the push-ups and all that kind of stuff, and the girls were over there stretching. I think that may still apply now if they even get out and do anything. But that's kind of how I was raised, and I didn't get into stretching until an adult, and luckily I had a good friend that was into stretching and kind of turned me on to it early before I decided to change my life and pursue fitness as my livelihood, trying to play tennis at 28. But I started stretching when I was 22. And I realized this is one of the most important components of fitness. Especially, I'll explain this in more detail in my next video, where I'm going to explain how to strike an object, how to hit an object, and I'll do that as a follow-up video to this. But the flexibility is very, very important. It helps protect us from injury while we're out playing. It also is necessary for maintenance. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. So every day you want to do something where you use your whole body and do some twisting motions like this. You know, you can do twisting motions over your head. You got to look at how many ways you move your body. I love watching little kids play, especially in the swimming pool. They're just moving their arms all over the place. And I've always noticed, and this, I haven't seen this in a good 10 years because I haven't been out by a pool in a long time, but the last time I looked, I was always intrigued by how both young people and even older people that are like 80 have well-developed deltoids back here because they're moving their arms all over the place. And of course, it's easier to see in the children if they're not overweight because they're going to be around 12% body fat, so their definition is more prominent. But when I was teaching fitness at the Houstonian, after I would teach a fitness class, I'd go out and do the water aerobics, and there were the master swimmers out there that are above 65, and every one of them had amazing backs. Their backs were ripped, incredible, like young men. And women, well, the women not so much, but the men, you know, they're more muscular. And it's amazing how well developed they are. So it's never too late to add that muscle mass that we were talking about. But the thing is you got to move everything. So that was one reason why I liked aerobics so much. Aerobics has you doing something different every 4 times. So you would do 4 jumping jacks like this, and then you do 4 lunges like this, and then you do 4 twists like this. You see what I'm saying? Or whatever you do like this. You kick up, whatever you want to do. You know, there's all sorts of things you can do with aerobics. You can dance. I fell in love with aerobics when I was out exercising on my bike one day, and I drove by an aerobics studio, and I go, hey, that looks like a great workout. It's intense. It looks like it's fun. It's to the beat of music, and it's all women. I said, I got to start doing this. So I got into aerobics for quite a while. Not quite a while. I actually got into it for a couple years. I didn't like working out indoors. That was the big drawback for me. I actually even taught aerobics for a couple years. That was a blast, and that's how I learned a lot about how the body works. That's how I learned about the joints. I got into this field in the first 10 years of its existence, and one of its claims to fame is, we don't come with all that garbage and baggage that all the other people do in their fitness field, where they have all these myths that they think this is supposed to be this way. So this is all based on the latest research. And of course, we found there's a lot we don't know, so who knows really when it comes to the body. But nonetheless, this is a fun thing to do. Anything that works with music is a fun way to exercise. You got to move your body to be healthy. And you got to incorporate the stretching and the flexibility. So that was part of what I learned through this training. And it was a big part of my workout, and I encouraged flexibility to be part of your program. That's why yoga is so good. Their philosophy, Hatha Yoga, is if you have a flexible spine, you'll be healthy. So those are the first 4, flexibility. And I'll say one more thing about flexibility. That will tie into my next video. There was an article in the Houston Fitness magazine many years ago, back in the 80s, where a local boxer, Evander Holyfield, or he lived here, #1 boxer at one time, Evander Holyfield, they asked him, what's the most important component of fitness? And he said it's flexibility. And to find the answer why, you have to listen to my next video I'll do on how to strike an object. So anyway, the 5th component of fitness is now our body composition. Now, when we look at the way the traditional fitness industry looks at this component, they say it's the lean body mass, body fat percentage. That's their indicator. But what they are missing is other components of weight that are just as important. That water percentage is huge, my friends. Get a scale that measures your water percentage, and it's got to be around 70%. If it's down to 50, you're going to have too much fat on you, and your cells are going to be dehydrated. You got to change that to be healthy. So that's, if you're going to look at 5 major components of physical fitness relative for our health, you got to understand when you look at the body composition that the water percentage is huge, and what's even bigger is the serpent that lives within us. Remember, there are 7 major components of weight. 2 of them have to do with the serpent. Now, some of us don't have a serpent, but we still have one of those components of weight. That's the relatively fresh stuff. if you're eating the right foods, everything's in and out the next day. It has the right bowel transit time. The problem with us as a species is most of the food we're eating has slow bowel transit time, so we have 12, 15 meals backed up in our intestines. That's the serpent that's in us, and that can weigh quite a bit. But then there's even older stuff that can be decades old, and I had a 20-pound cesspool in me. Not sure how much would have been relatively fresh and how much was old, but there was a lot of it. I documented it. I've coached thousands of people. Virtually everyone has amazing things come out of them when they do this. So we have to realize that's the more important composition, body composition we need to look at. How much crap do we have inside of us? What kind of serpent do we have that's influencing us in ways we don't understand until we get rid of it? So those are 5 major components of physical fitness that we need for our health. Remember, we have to move our body. We have to exercise. It helps to understand how all the joints in the body. I've gone through a video on how to heal the back naturally, where I explain the 22 main ranges of motion. Then we add to that every limb that has like 8 ranges of motion. And it's all a little bit different and unique. And I'll go into more detail about how those different joints or articulations are different in my very next video. So be sure to watch my other video, and in case some of my subscribers haven't noticed, I've upped up how many videos I've been taping lately. I don't know if I'll keep doing this, but I changed the length of them, and I'm splitting them up. Instead of doing one long one, Monday I did 3 individual ones, and they weren't completely all related. 2 of them were. Yesterday I uploaded 2. Make sure you're watching both of them. I'm not sure, it's too early to tell whether or not I'm losing hits this way, because some of y'all may not see the other ones. But right now, it doesn't look like this is the way for me to go. I might have to back off of this. So give me some feedback, what you think about this. And remember, you have to be healthy when you start exercising. In fact, I told you a little while ago, for most of us, if we do something pretty strenuous, it takes about 5 minutes before the endorphins kick in. And when I taught aerobics, and I had different music that I would work out to with my class, I always knew where that 5-minute mark or so was based on the song I'm playing. And as I'm up there bouncing around, I'm listening to the music, and all of a sudden, boom, smile on the face, endorphins. I'm telling you, my friends, if you don't know how to bump up those endorphins, you don't know what you're missing, because otherwise you'd be in for a treat.